Hey, Stephen Yanni here at Bernison Auto Wrecking doing the Junkyard Crawl in Bernison, Massachusetts. And we've got a really great 67 Mustang two-door coupe here. This is a low-mile, rust-free example, and it's cheap. And I'm kidding. Now, we used to call these things Rustangs, and kind of still do, and this is why. Now, the Junkyard's a great place to, well, have a nice cutaway x-ray view of vehicles like this one here. Now, 67 was the year that Ford graduated the Mustang from the compact Falcon platform to the mid-sized Fairlane platform. And in doing so, the shock towers here were spread apart about 3 inches, which opened the door to FE 390 and 428 power plants. And in fact, 427s were installed in a handful of Mustangs in 1968, the 390 horsepower hydraulic cam 427. But again, wasn't going to be possible in 64.5, 5, and 6 because the shock towers are too darn close. Now, this is kind of a weird car. Now, you know, Mustangs, like any car, they can be a blank canvas for butchers and artists alike. This one has some really weird stuff. Somewhere along the line, this car was hit hard. The front was cut off, bolted back on, and then these 2 metal reinforcements were welded in to restore some degree of structural integrity. But you saw it here first, folks. Butcher work at its very worst and best. You decide. But one thing about the Mustang, as we all know, is when these things are turned into pro touring cars with Coyote motors, or even back in 65 when Holman and Moody put the 427 camera in these things, the shock towers or spring towers were in the way. What's behind these things? Well, here in the Boneyard cutaway, we see it. The upper control arm has the coil spring riding on top of it, and it then goes up into the spring tower. And the shock absorber rides down the middle, so that's what's behind these obtrusive towers. Now, these can be sliced out, and flat inner fenders can be added. That's only possible when you either add aftermarket coilover suspension, or in the case of the 65 AFX cars, use the torsion leaf, flat leaf spring arrangement going from the lower control arm to the front of the frame. Now, that's just some weird stuff that was done on AFX Mustangs, but again, the spring towers in Mustangs and Fairlanes and a lot of other Ford vehicles are kind of a wart on the arse of progress, but that's what's behind them right there, courtesy of this Junkyard cutaway. Now, this one is a 2-door coupe, and keep in mind that of the 472,000 Mustangs sold in 1967, 356,000, or most of them, were the 2-door hardtop. Now, this one has had the B pillars cut away, but it looks kind of like a convertible, but no, this was a 2-door hardtop. Now, we called them Rustang then and now. Look at the floor, it's not even there. Classic rust. Now, we can't really nail the Mustang as being a rust-prone car. I mean, any car subjected to rust or salt and liquid and snow is certainly going to start to show some problems pretty quickly, but Mustangs were classic for it. And the trouble is, these were so popular that people wouldn't know when to quit. And we'd see butcher jobs like that inner fender repair. And this here, this almost inch-thick Bondo, this putty on the quarter panels. This car, you know, it should have been probably thrown away a long time ago, but again, people want to keep these things on the road. So they're classic for just having feet of Bondo plastered on them. Now, the one thing about Mustangs that's good and bad is that the all-important trim tag is located on the door. The bad news is, if this car is ever involved in a crash and you lose the door for a replacement, you lose the trim tag. But let's do some deciphering and see here. See, okay, 7F, it's 1967 model year, F, Dearborn plant. 01 is the 2-door hardtop body. C, 289 2-barrel engine. 206669, that's the sequence number. Look at that, number of the beast. Do you smell any smoke? I do. Kidding. Okay, body 65A. That means this is the bucket seat. This is a 2-door post, 2-door hardtop. Color M, Wimbledon white, same color used on 65 GT350s. 2A trim, that means black bucket seat interior. 2C would mean bench seat. Yes, you could get bench seat in your Mustang convertible fastback or hardtop. Yep. Date, not important. Dealer sales organization, 35 means Lansing, Michigan. Let's remember that Lansing, Michigan is where Oldsmobile's headquarters were. So this car was sold to a Ford dealer in Lansing, which was right down the road from Dearborn, where it was made. And finally, the axle code is an O, which means the 310-to-1 transmission WC4 automatic. So again, a pretty good example of a ho-hum, middle-of-the-road Mustang coupe. But again, of the 472,000 of these things made, 356,000 were two-door coupes like this. They weren't all fastbacks or convertibles, although those are the ones you commonly see at the auction or selling for big bucks in the collector world. But again, this is a great example of how the Mustang became a Rustang, courtesy of the salty roads in New England, and of course any place where there's liquid and that kind of thing. That's why it always pays to buy cars from Arizona, Idaho, New Mexico, California, whenever you can. But with that said, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the Steve Maggs YouTube channel, and there's a lot more to come here at Bernardston Auto Wrecking.